Mr. Pop. Dark.
When the little birds are nesting, and I listen to them coo, there's two lonesome people in the whole wide world. That's me and the man in the moon.
But anyway, I mean, I think we're ready to kick things off, right?
Yeah, I think we are too. So hello everybody, and welcome to Miskatonic University Radio, a podcast exploring fantasy-like games as Arkham Horror the card game. My name is Dane.
I'm Dan.
I'm Ben.
And today we're going to be continuing our look at the player cards in the upcoming Investigator starter packs. So for those who might not have seen last week's episode, we officially started our look on these cards and explained a little bit more about what the products are. So go check that video / podcast out to see this series first to last. Otherwise, we are, oh god, I actually wrote this. We are weak in the knees to talk about this week's weaknesses.
What?
In player cards.
Bad. Bad. Listeners, would anyone else like to join our podcast and take Dane's place on the podcast? We're holding open auditions right now. Does anyone else want to do Dane's job?
They trusted you to write this intro. I didn't proofread it.
All you have to do is write less bad puns. That's all it takes.
I don't know, man. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday. Oh,
I mean, Harrison's literally in the same house. Harrison could just come, push you out of the chair, sit down in the chair, and just immediately take over.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whatever. We'll have discussions about this later. But I
already forgot what you read in this intro because that pun was so bad.
Great.
We're talking about secret cards, and
we're talking about secret cards and basic weaknesses.
Yeah, thanks again to FFG for putting out so many cards in such a short amount of time that we have to do like a bonus episode between 2 other episodes instead of doing it every 2 weeks like we normally do. That's like a sincere thank you because I'm very happy to have new cards, but also come on. Anyway.
But also, like, what better to have a bonus episode on than the Seeker class?
The best
universally known as, like, the card, the like, Seeker bullshit. A la Shaper bullshit from Netrunner, kind of.
Oh, man, I love that bullshit. Give me more of that bullshit.
For sure.
Is it time to start talking in detail about specific bullshit cards?
Let's do it.
So we're going to save Harvey for, like, an Investigator episode. We're just talking about the cards today, right?
We're just talking about the things that come with him.
Yeah, we'll talk about all 5 of the new Investigators in a future episode. So we're just talking about the new cards. We'll try to go quickly over the ones that are reprints. Let's get started with an asset. We have an asset called Arcane Enlightenment. It costs 2. It's level 0. It has 2 willpower icons. It's a ritual, and it says, your maximum hand size is increased by 1. You have 1 additional hand slot, which can only be used to hold a Tome asset. And it takes up a arcane slot. So here we go. Alphabetically, the first asset in the pack. What do we think about Arcane Enlightenment?
I'm struggling to understand what the art is. I've been thinking about this since this got spoiled.
I can describe what it is. It's math on a chalkboard.
What's that background?
Because that used to be my job, kind of.
It's like a wallpaper, I think. It's a wallpaper.
Who has that kind of wallpaper in like a school setting?
Mathematicians.
Yeah, pretty much. All of our offices are like that, actually.
Is this like a formula that some mathematician like framed because it was so amazing and important, and he put it up in his house, like over his like?
That's a normal thing to do. Don't judge us. Come on. No, I would agree. I'm confused about maybe the FFG art people looked at some photos of like classrooms in the 1920s and they looked like this. That would be interesting. So I don't know.
Smokebomb in the chat says that it is. He thinks it's a painting that you suddenly understand. Maybe that is
like a magic
it's definitely a chalkboard, and you've like written something out. You've suddenly solved the puzzle, and now you see beyond the numbers.
Yeah.
It's like when they have the shows about mathematicians and they're staring at a blackboard and they have all the stuff flying around their faces to show how smart they are at solving the formulas.
Which is exactly how math works in real life, by the way. That's 100% accurate. We just don't do it when non-mathematicians are around because it freaks them out.
So I mean, this gives you like an invisible math hand, then, right? Like this gives you just a hand to hold like knowledge.
It gives you the most dangerous thing possible, which is another way to hold more tomes. That's very scary.
This card doesn't do anything.
Well, it takes up an arcane slot, actually.
Yeah, that is okay. That is something that it does. This card doesn't do anything. This is like, I looked at this for a long time, and I was trying to convince myself, like, well, I mean, having the 2 willpower symbols is great, but the thing is, you still have to have some kind of scenario where you would like to actually play the card. Otherwise, you could pick a different card with 2 will symbols.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever play this.
So this is the kind of thing that it doesn't do anything itself, but it gives your deck more capacity to do things, kind of like Dream Enhancing Serum. It's just kind of like sits there, and it's kind of
no. Dream Enhancing Serum draws you cards. Does this draw you cards?
That's right. No.
Because it doesn't do anything by itself. The intent of this card is to work with other cards in like big hand decks, or some type of tome deck if you wanted to do maybe Parallel Daisy or something and have like a million tomes out. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't do anything by itself. I've been playing the Harvey deck in Return to Forgotten Age, and I keep drawing this and trying to play it, and then be like, why did I waste 2 money in action playing this?
If it was like free or even 1, or if it was fast, I think it would be worth having a conversation about. As it is, like, yeah, I would play it as part of the Harvey deck as kind of like a constructed like theme deck, but if you're trying to make like the best possible optimized secret deck, probably this isn't going to be in it.
And if you're trying to do like a big hand, or your hand is like 15 or 20 or something, then I guess this is part of that, but I don't know. I haven't been too impressed with it so far.
I think this is going to be a recurring theme as we talk about more of these cards, but the big hand thing is kind of tenuously good enough on its own. I really don't think it rewards you enough to be worth like playing cards like this. But I mean,
I think I would probably play this. Somebody in chat actually said it's going in my alt Daisy deck. Maybe I'd play this in Daisy as like if you wanted to have something to upgrade to those allies who like let you hold books and who's the person, Abigail Foreman, who like holds a book for you. Maybe this could be kind of like a reasonable, if you weren't totally confident on like doing straight like not straight upgrades to things, this might be a good include, so you just don't even really have to think about when you're upgrading to Abigail Foreman like what you're going to take out of your deck. It also doubles as 2 will, which is kind of fine. That's kind of like its saving grace, I think, because like if you don't find this in your opening hand, you're probably not going to be playing it.
I think I solved it. You get Arcane Enlightenments, and then you get Books of Shadows to give you more arcane slots, and then I lost it. I think there's some nonsense you do with this and like Book of Shadows and something else that lets you have like a certain number of arcane and hand slots. It doesn't actually do anything.
What's the arcane? What's the purple card that like takes up a hand slot but gives you an arcane slot?
Oh, Sign Magic?
Just play 2 of these and 2 of those, and you have the same number of slots. It's great. Yeah, Sign Magic. There you go. Anything else to say about Arcane Enlightenment, or shall we?
Let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Next one is how do you pronounce this? Celaeno Fragments?
Maybe.
So the next card is Celaeno Fragments, tentatively. It is a unique book of books. It costs 1 to play, level 0, asset, has 1 intellect icon on it. It is an item in a tome. Hey, we just talked about tomes. While you have 5 or more cards in hand, you get +1 intellect. While you have 10 or more cards in hand, you get +1 will. And you have 15 or more cards in hand, you get +1 intellect, and it takes up 1 hand slot. So this provides the most stat boost other than like universal stat boosts like Dark Horse and things like that in the game if you have 15 or more cards in hand. How realistic is that?
If you go hard into the big hand deck, you can get up to it.
Do you guys know what's a really, really good card? Magnifying Glass.
That is true. So here's
a large advocate.
A card like this has to do a lot in order to be worth playing. One cost is actually pretty good because we're already kind of remembering Magnifying Glass. Well, you have 5 cards in hand. That's pretty like easy to do. When you draw your opening hand, you've got 5. Obviously, when you play this, you get 4, so it immediately turns off. But assuming you're playing Harvey and you're like kind of netting positive from like your lab assistants and things like that, you're gonna like constantly have at least 1 book, right? So, or from this anyway. But the question is that like, and I think that there's a card or there's an achievement in Terraforming Mars where it's like, if you have like a bunch of cards in hand, you can claim the achievement. And it's like, well, everybody knows it's terrible because then you're just not playing your cards.
You know, like achievement, Dane.
Yeah.
Is there an achievement on part of the card game for having like your entire deck in your hand or something that you haven't told me about?
I mean,
but
there is
so
that
that's all
these things.
Right? Because like if you have 15 or more cards in hand, what are you doing with them? You have to have like you have to like be cycling them constantly so that like you're always netting cards in your hand and like kind of maintaining a status quo for this thing to be like really good. If it did something else like active, maybe it might be reasonable. Like even if it just like replaced itself when you put it down, it might be even more worth considering. As it is, it might be fine. Like if you have a huge card deck, or a hand rather, but who knows?
We're gonna see with a lot of these cards that they like synergize off of the big hand because that's what Harvey's doing. So
yeah,
like a lot of them are gonna be like, "Are you trying to do big hand? If so, yeah, maybe give it a try. If you're not, this is kind of if you're not really doing the big hand."
I look at this and I imagine, imagine if they reprinted Magnifying Glass and it said, Magnifying Glass, while you have 0 or more cards in hand, you get +1 intellect. While you have 10 or more cards in hand, congratulations, you have 10 cards. You should probably play some of them or commit some of them. While you have 15 or more cards in hand, congratulations, you have a lot of cards. You should probably play or commit some of them. Like that's the card that I would like to play in my decks. But I also keep in mind that this is unique. So like Magnifying Glass, if you find 2, you can play 2.
Oh, that's true.
Maybe that's an argument for playing like one of these and one Magnifying Glass, and it is kind of like a compromise. But there's also, I think really it reminds me of the Hawkeye folding camera, where it's a fun, cool card in a certain type of deck, and I could understand wanting to play it. But probably it's not as good as Magnifying Glass, like overall, if you're trying to make like the most optimized deck possible.
I think that's the most like fair assessment of it, because like I think that it can be fine. Like if it's getting you 1 will, 1 book, that's pretty solid. Like I'm not going to complain about it taking up a hand slot, only costing me 1 and an action to play.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's just that there happens to be a very similar card from the core set that is like mostly better.
And keep in mind, Magnifying Glass is just +1 intellect to investigations, which granted
that's true.
A lot of your usage for intellect, but
but if you're using like I've got a plan or other things like that, or just like raw tests, this will help you out where Magnifying Glass might not.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway,
let's move on to this card.
Yeah, let's do it.
So next up we have Disc of Itzamna. Yeah?
Protective Amulet.
Alright, whatever. So it's Protective Amulet. We've seen the level 2 version of this before back from the core set, but this is a new level 0 version. It is a cost 3 asset with 1 willpower icon, item, and a relic. When a non-elite enemy spawns at your location, discard Disc of Itzamna, automatically evade that enemy or deal it 2 damage. And it takes up the accessory slot. Compared to the original level 2 version also has an intellect and a combat icon on it, and the effect is discard the disc to discard that enemy. So this one doesn't necessarily get rid of the enemy completely, just helps you deal with it.
Is non-elite like really necessary here?
It is.
Can I just like use that?
It's always necessary.
2 damage to an elite enemy, like really that big of a transgression? Like, can Seekers really just not do that?
This is like something we should put on the list next time we interview like Jeremy or MJ or somebody. Is what goes into the decision of when to say non-elite in front of enemy on a card? Because like I understand that sometimes they have to have that clause, but I'm really curious about what are their criteria for like deciding that.
There's an upcoming investigator that does not specifically have non-elite in her ability, and I think that's fantastic. but this like so dealing 2 damage or evading an enemy seems great, but I think that this is really going to shine in like in solo basically only. Like if you wanted to run a Seeker in solo, this is probably what you need to take to help mitigate as much enemies as possible. And that's probably why they printed it, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's too expensive to really be worth thinking about for most decks, but if you're solo, I mean, the bottom line is you need to have a certain number of cards in your deck that can deal with enemies. You probably can't play like weapons and stuff as most Seekers unless you're Joe. So you have to you have to settle for cards like this, and you might have to,
Yeah, I mean, getting them with Ellie would be pretty nice.
Yeah, I've been using it on in Harvey. Definitely costs a lot, but it helps with the snakes when the snakes come out to help evade them. But
that is true. Yeah, I like that it gives you the option too.
It's just a lot. It's 3 resources and a action to evade something in the future.
Yeah.
Or deal 2 damage in the future, which 2 damage in a lot of the later campaigns is not enough to kill a lot of things.
That's the thing. Like, I think that I've Got a Plan is probably mostly better than this. Even like a manual dexterity might be kind of better than this, just because it's free. If you have enough high enough base agility to be able to pass with a manual dexterity. So, but in certain solo decks, maybe if you benefit from relics or items somehow, if you can recur it somehow, there might be reasons.
Yeah. I mean, we were never even that impressed with the original upgraded version, just because it had such a high cost. But
yeah.
And the non-elite thing is kind of rough.
Time to move on.
Yeah, I mean, most stuff has non-elite on it. It's because they use elite bosses. They don't want you to be able to automatically evade a boss or something.
I think I think that's why. So next up, we have
apparently
we have a downgraded version of Encyclopedia. So this is a 2-cost asset level 0. It has 1 wild icon on it. It's an item in a tome. Uses 5 secrets, that's new. Action, exhaust Encyclopedia and spend 1 secret. Choose an investigator at your location. That investigator gets +2 to a skill of your choice until the end of the phase. Takes up a hand slot. So the only difference between the existing level 2 version and this new level 0 version is the XP cost, and the new one only has 5 secrets on it that you use up every time you use it. Other than that, same card. So what do you guys think about Encyclopedia?
Welcome to level 0 Daisy decks, and only level 0 Daisy decks.
Yeah.
I think on the spectrum of math, right? You've got the number 5.
Yes, please tell me more about the math spectrum.
And you've got infinity, right? 5 is basically infinity in this context, right?
5 pertains
to
there's actually numbers that are significantly higher and lower than 5. Like, I'm not sure why. Okay, never mind. Continue.
I feel like 5 secrets is so many. Like that you'll get a lot of use out of this before you're like, darn, wish I had more secrets on my encyclopedia to use it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's
great. Even Daisy, like, if you really wanted to worry about recharging it, maybe you play like Enraptured or whatever.
Yeah.
But 5 is a lot. Like, even when playing level 2 Encyclopedia on Daisy, I feel like I don't necessarily use it every turn. And it's because it's also kind of awkward to use because you can't use it to boost your own agility or fight if you got an enemy on you or whatever because you get attacked.
You just get hit,
Yeah.
So, like, 5 is plenty. It's like, it seems unlikely I'll use the higher level version again.
The question I think we should ask really quick, just sort of checking in with how Daisy's doing. Have you guys played Encyclopedia, the level 2 version in a Daisy deck recently?
Not recently, but I have before.
Because I used to earlier in the game. I think recently I have not, because it seems like there's just enough other choices now that it has kind of been outclassed, maybe. Like, it can still be a pretty good card, and especially maybe in solo. But I think that it's more of like it's no more just kind of like a default good tome that you'd put in your deck, and it's more like you have to have a specific reason to want it. But I agree with Dane that 5 secrets is a lot, and that in a sense this is like almost as good as the level 2 version. If you were going to play the level 2 version, you're probably happy to see this.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be happy to not spend 2 experience and just keep this in my deck and like upgrade. Like, when they introduced Old Book of Lore 3, I was like, okay, there are not a lot of other books that I'd want in my hand other than Old Book of Lore 3. If I have my Old Book of Lore 3, then I'm going to be able to just play other things for free with my Old Book of Lore 3. So, like, I wouldn't ever, like, recharge these secrets before I recharge those. They are secrets, right, on the Old Book of Lore 3?
Yeah, you start with 2 secrets.
Yeah, I would far rather get those. And a book that we're going to be talking about soon.
Well, and there's also, we'll talk about a card later that lets you move secrets around between different cards. I forget if it's I forget if it's in this pack or if it's in like Innsmouth or something, but there is a card coming soon that does that. So,
ooh, very excited for that.
But yeah, let's move on for now, right?
Yeah. So next card is welcome back, Esoteric Atlas. Now it's level 2. This is the new one, right? Yeah. New one is level 2. It added a will icon onto an agility icon. Uses 4 secrets. Action, spend 1 secret. Choose a revealed location up to 3 connections away from your location. Move to the location. Wow, that's a lot of mobility. That's like the most mobility. Like, if you had a straight track and you said, okay, Ursula, go. You've got shortcuts and you've got pathfinders. The other person is Daisy and she has Esoteric Atlases. None of the locations are revealed. Do you know who wins? Ursula still, because this can't move to revealed locations.
I think the new ancient stone from Return to Forgotten Age might win that contest.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that one. No, but this is really interesting. Like 3 locations is kind of it's kind of like a rook move, right? You kind of go like you can do a lot of weird things with moving exactly 3 locations.
It is pretty cool, and it also, like, unlike Pathfinder, you can do it even if you're engaged with an enemy. It would just AOO you. Yeah, I mean, that is a lot of sort of movement power.
I mean, again, level 1/1, this is so much better because level 1/1 required you to move exactly 2 locations.
That sucks.
And this one lets you do,
up to 3.
Yeah, up to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, which means that this one can, like, for Daisy, it can be, like, basically a Pathfinder,
Yeah, but only for Daisy.
Yeah, I the thing that I still keep coming back to, though, is, like, even if you're Daisy, who's, like, the best case for using this, I feel like rather than use up one of your only sort of hand slots for this, I would probably still rather play Pathfinder, and then for my book slots, my hand slots, take cards that I can't replicate with, like, non-hand slot items. But, I mean, for some scenarios, being able to move this fast, using your free Daisy action would be really, really strong.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like the blob that ate everything. Like, being able to move around that board, like, super fast would be great. I would love to play this in, like, a...
Garden Age. This definitely applies to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the thing that I always have to keep in mind when we're talking about cards like this that sort of lets you teleport is... Remember, Safeguard level 2, I think, specifically says when they move to an adjacent location. So I think that you can't, like, follow someone if they teleport with, like, this or the pendant, which is kind of too bad.
Yeah. But, I mean, like, the other notable thing, the difference here between level 1 and level 2, is that the level 1 exhausts itself. So if you really needed to, like, just bum rush across a map or something like that, you can do that in 1 turn with this. It's kind of nice.
That is true, yeah. Anything else to talk about, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
So the next card is Farsight, which features a bird on it. It is level 4, cost 2 asset, with a willpower and a wild icon on it. It is a ritual. Free trigger, during your turn, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, exhaust Farsight, play an event from your hand, paying its cost. And it is an arcane slot. It also has some type of math quote on it, not a bird quote. Maybe this bird has math.
I'm pretty sure that's actually just some of the flavor text that you can decode in Fez, if I remember correctly.
Did this bird just, like, suddenly learn a tremendous amount of math and, like, now 100% of its brain is firing or something like that, kind of like Bradley Cooper in that one movie?
There are actually birds have made a lot of important contributions to math over the years. Octagons actually were discovered by a bald eagle. Most people don't know that, but yeah, birds probably the second most mathematically talented species on the planet after humans. is the generally accepted view. I really wish this was a permanent.
That would be nuts. This kind of is a build around me, right? This feels like a build around me card.
I mean, it kind of goes along with all the other big hand stuff, right?
Yeah, this is one that might actually pay off, though, right?
I kind of just feel like I'm talking about, like, 3 or 4 player, like, dedicated specialized seeker decks, but if you're consistently spending actions to play events, what are you doing as a seeker? Like, the thing that makes the modern seeker decks so ridiculously good is that they get all of their money in cards and move without spending any actions, and the only thing that they need to spend actions on basically is, like, investigating, and they do that extremely well, right? Like you're kind of already, if you look at, like, the really super good Mandy deck, it has, like, 4 assets that it needs to play once per game, and then it has, like, each time you cycle your deck, which you do, like, 5 times, you play, like, 1 triple easy mark, and that's, like, the 1 action that you spend to play a card. So, not really enough to make it worth having this, I think. I don't know. I mean, it would be cool. Like, if you make a really event-heavy Seeker deck, this could really make it feel really fast and powerful.
I think that's kind of what you have to do. You kind of have to, like, get into the mindset of being a little slower in terms of, like, because you need to build up a really big hand size. Captain Farnese does. Are there any Seeker events that aren't fast?
Right, yeah. I mean,
because what happens, like, so you draw your opening hand. 5 cards. You play this, you play Shortcut, you play Working a Hunch. Now you've got 2 cards in your hand. You still got a whole bunch of actions, but like how many of those do you drop for other cards that aren't fast? Like I've Got a Plan, for example, is the one big event. Like Logical Reasoning is another big event that I would play like in a secret deck that I'd be really happy playing fast with this.
Yeah,
but, like,
that's true.
Other things like if you're doing like Mandy and you have like intel reports in your hand or something like that, like you can kind of try and think about doing that too. What you said, easy mark, right? If you play 1 easy mark off this fast, all the other ones come with it, right? It's kind of neat.
Yeah, but so then you're getting 3 easy marks for 0 actions instead of 1 action. Like it's kind of gravy. You're already getting a great deal out of that.
That's true.
I do wonder. So I mean, yeah, you could build a deck around like. Imagine if you were playing a lot of those kind of expensive-ish clue-getting events. Like what are the ones like Connect the Dots and Decipher Reality and stuff. Like there's all those secret events that don't really see a whole lot of play. That are like get 2 clues at a location 4 spaces away where there's an enemy or something. You could try to do that, and that would be an interesting take on a secret deck.
I think a good point here, though, is that like this also helps you like avoid AOs if you're in like a dire need of doing so. Like you can play things like like Seeking Answers or like things that you might not necessarily need like get to otherwise. But
I think most of the things that you would play if you have an enemy on you are like I've Got a Plan that don't provoke anyway. Oh, you know what would be cool with this is Bloodright from Occult Lexicon. Like if you had Occult Lexicon in your deck and you're like cycling through your deck and you want to play Bloodrights, that would be kind of a fun way to use this.
Yeah, I mean even cards like there's a card that I haven't even thought of in my deck that Joe Smokebomb linked in chat here. Guidance is a card that I would never think to put in a secret deck, mainly just because it's like secret actions are so much more valuable than pretty much any other class. Like if Guardians had Guidance, I probably might play 1 in some decks because giving Seekers more opportunities to get clues is great. But playing Guidance means that you're not getting a clue or you're moving or doing something that you need to be doing. But like this, if you have it in your deck, it's kind of like gravy because if you have more than 8 cards, you just give somebody a free action on their turn. Could be pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a cool card. I wish the threshold for being able to use it was a little bit lower than 8, but it's interesting enough that I would like to see a cool deck using it someday.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next card, which is Feed the Minds. So we already had a level 3 version of this. Now we have a level 0 version. It's an asset, cost 3. It has 1 intellect icon on it. And it says, uses 3 secrets. Action, exhaust Feed the Mind and spend 1 secret. Test intellect 1. For each point you succeed by to a maximum of 3, draw 1 card. And it takes up your arcane slot. What do you guys think about level 0 Feed the Mind?
It's kind of necessary. I mean, like, this is kind of how you're going to be drawing your cards, right? Like, if other than like lab assistants and like maybe
Sorry,
I don't know. Eventually,
sorry, I'm going to be spending real actions to draw cards.
That's the thing. I mean, I want to get to that, but like the value that you get out of this, even if you do 1 action, draw 3 cards, that's great. But it's still $3. I think or 3 resources. I think you have to do this exactly 3 times and be needing all 9 cards for it to actually get the value of that would take like 1 action, 3 resources, or no, 4 actions, 3 resources for 9 cards. Seems like okay. But like anything else, it's kind of like you're playing this because you don't have other cards that are available to you. Like, I never remember the name. Draw 3 cards fast.
Cryptic Research, yeah, because at that point, if it's like 4 actions, 3 resources, draw 9, that's assuming that you don't like draw a bad token on one of them and draw fewer. That's like sort of on par with like Preposterous Sketches, where it's like a decent card but not exactly great.
Yeah, I think like I remember being very excited about Feed the Mind level 3 when it came out. All of us were. We were pretty excited because it's like you could just refill your whole hand. 2 resources, 2 actions, and you just like draw 7. Maybe you take a horror or 2 or whatever, but like great. I have the rest of my deck in my hand.
My honest take on this is, unless there's like it does take up an arcane slot, it's a spell, so maybe there's some kind of spell synergies for some decks. But other than that, I think put this in the binder, wait and see if they taboo like all of the really good Seeker cards, because this is like a fair card, and Seekers right now do not need to play fair cards because they have too many unfair cards to play. So
that's a good way of wording it, I think, honestly.
If all the really fun, awesome, too good cards get tabooed, then I will happily go back and play Feed the Mind.
Yeah, I remember playing Feed the Mind. It was roughly when Forgotten Age was kind of like near City of Archives or something like that, and we were pretty excited about it. I played it once, and I was really happy with like, oh great, I get to draw like 6 cards or whatever, and it's like a really great like pull back your engine and all your cards in your hand. But like, there's just still things that I just play more, like that I like to play more. So
it's definitely cool. And yeah, keep in mind, Der Smokepalm in chat mentions that Harvey draws 4 max of this. Remember that this works pretty well with Harvey because you want to draw cards during your turn, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I tried it in the Harvey deck. I haven't been too impressed with it because sometimes you draw a bad token and then it's like, oh, I just draw 2 cards. I could have just taken a draw action.
That's the thing. It's just very resource and action intensive for Seekers who really generally would like to just be spending most of their actions getting clues.
Yeah, but I think the only person who would like realistically be able to afford this, if like you needed a way to draw, would be Marie, because she can play off-class spells. But Marie also has access to like one of the other best draws in the game, which is the Scroll of Prophecies, which already like it draws you 3 cards and then you discard 1, which you can use for like other things that you can do in Marie decks. So
yeah, when you compare this to Scroll of Prophecies, it does not come out very well, right?
Yeah, other than the hand slot.
Yeah.
I mean, would Trish want this somehow? Because Trish can take Seeker cards, and I mean, she's not.
Yeah, but we don't know who Trish is yet. So
who is that? Who?
Trish are you talking about some kind of secret spy person whose identity hasn't been revealed?
They've been revealed on another podcast, but yeah, it's officially. But whatever. Fine, let's move on.
Next card.
Next card is Forbidden Tome. Oh god, there's a lot of text here. All right, so it's all. So there are 3 versions of this tome. First is the level 0. Forbidden Tome Untranslated. So this is to go in the long line of untranslated, undeciphered, or whatever. So this is a 1-cost level 0 asset, commits for 1 wild, item relic tome, or its subtypes, uses 5 secrets. Action, exhaust Forbidden Tome and spend 1 secret, draw 1 card. Then if you have 10 or more cards in your hand, and there are no secrets on Forbidden Tome, you may discard it and record in your campaign log that you have translated the tome. Hooray! So in terms of just the card as related to the other translated cards, already a higher level of difficulty to try and get this.
You have to spend 5 actions, so make sure the last action puts you over 10 cards, or you're already over 10 cards.
Well,
right.
Unless you have some way to move the secrets off of this onto something else.
Ooh, there we go.
Which is rare, I guess. But I mean, the actions also, like, you are getting cards out of this, right? It's like the thing about the archaic glyphs is like that one is also kind of takes a lot of effort to discover, but you get a whole bunch of money as a reward for discovering it. This one, like, it takes a lot of actions, but you do get cards.
It's a lot of actions.
It is a lot of. So if you're Daisy, again, like every time I see a tome, I think of Daisy, and I'm like, this is a free action to draw a card.
That's the thing. Yeah. For Daisy, it's almost fine because she gets to spend her free action to draw a card. Harvey, he gets to do an action to draw 2 cards on his turn. It's not terrible, Oh,
that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. So what do you get when you actually complete this like kind of monumental feat? Forbidden Tome Dark Knowledge is the first one. Level 3. Still costs 1 to play, has a will and a combat icon on it, so you can kind of know where this is going. You can only include this asset in your deck by upgrading it from Forbidden Tome Untranslated, and if you've translated the tome. 4 actions, exhaust Forbidden Tome, move 1 damage from a player card at your location to an enemy at your location. Reduce this ability's cost by 1 action for every 4 cards in your hand. Moving is kind of powerful, but we'll get that in a sec. The second type, Secrets Revealed. Still 1 to play, level 3, has an intellect and an agility icon and a wild icon. You can only include it, blah, blah, blah. 4 actions, exhaust Forbidden Tome. You may move to a connecting location, discover 1 clue at your location, and reduce the ability's costs by 1 action for every 4 cards in your hand. So again, another thing that rewards you having a ton of cards in your hand.
Yeah. So the thing that I don't love about this is that, forgetting about like Daisy for a second, for whom this is maybe a slightly different calculation, for everybody else, you can only reduce this down to one action, right? So best case scenario, if you have 12 cards in hand, you're spending one action to do something that is, I feel like, is kind of only barely worth more than an action. Like, for the Dark Knowledge version, you're basically healing a damage, which is kind of like the medical texts, and you're doing a damage to an enemy. By the way, can you do only one or the other? Like, if nobody at your location has a damage, but there's an enemy, can you still... You can't, right? Because you have to move it.
You need to have the damage to move.
And, okay, that just seems bad. That's, like, too many conditions to be satisfied. You'd have to have, like, you're in a duo deck with Mark where there's Safeguard and you're doing, like, backpack friends the whole time. That's, like, the only way that would be reasonable.
Or Calvin.
Yeah, I guess. But then you're making his stats worse, and also how does... Yeah, it's... I don't know. So, yeah, Dark Knowledge just seems bad. And then Secrets Revealed... So, okay, so you have 12 cards in hand. You're doing this for one action. For one action, you can move and discover a clue. Which is kind of nice, but... That's kind of like 2 actions for 1 if you meet this condition for 3 XP and a hand slot and once per turn, you know?
I mean, it's a Tesla's clue. That's something. You can knowledge's power this tome if you want and not have to pay actions.
Captain Fernie says a good point in chat. Isn't this just Ursula?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to beat around a bush, yeah. The notable thing, I think that the Secrets Revealed one is kind of interesting because... and I'm thinking of this purely in the context of Daisy because she also kind of gets that one action discount, so to speak. So every one of these is reading for me as like 3 actions for Daisy. And if you have like 10 cards in your hand, this is exactly one action. One Daisy action and then one real action. But if you have like Abigail Foreman out and you play this on Abigail Foreman, you can use this like twice effectively. So you can like discover a clue at your location and then... or you may move to it's like 2 Tesla's clues for the price of 1, which is kind of nice. And like moving is pretty cool in that respect. So I don't know.
That is interesting. But I just think that, so even for Daisy, there's the opportunity cost of using, like, it's not like you can just activate it for free. You get 1 action per turn that you can spend to activate books. So if you're doing this, you're not doing Old Book of Lore or Scroll of Prophecies or something. And those are also pretty good to double with Abigail, right? So
yeah,
my impression of this is it's just for the XP and stuff, this is kind of not powerful enough, and considering the fact that you really need 12 cards in hand before it's like really good. But yeah. I mean, I don't know, I always like these like discoverable untranslated cards. They're always fun. I could definitely see taking this for a spin once just to like check that box, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you guys are thinking like, oh, if we get the discount, you have to have 12 cards to get the discount.
That's a lot of cards. That's
you have to, like, you can only really use this if you're doing a big hand deck. That's fine.
That's the thing. Like, if we're having a conversation about like, is this really worth it, assuming that we always have 12 cards, that's a really good sign that it's probably not great. So
yeah,
the big hand deck, when it's fully running, you have like 15 cards in your hand at all times, and you're still playing and drawing cards. It's just you just always have a pile of them in your hand. So
This Secrets Revealed, definitely Ursula's journal. It's like how I learned to make my feet into rocket boots, part 1.
Secrets Revealed is definitely the better of the 2. I think Dark Knowledge is pretty bad. So
Dark Knowledge is tough because it's like you have to have. I mean, if you're playing Forgotten Age and you're gonna take physical trauma, hey, there's your value. But otherwise, it's like you're playing with a Mark. Sure, he's gonna have damage on him. You're gonna play with Calvin. Sure, he's gonna have damage on him. He's gonna hate you moving it places. Tommy, sure, like.
Oh,
it's just tough.
Wait, here's what you do. You have an enemy on you, but you don't have any damage on you yet. You can use Dark Knowledge, and then it'll hit you because it provokes the AOO.
And it's like it's hitting itself.
Wow, it's really good. This is finally they printed the Seeker survival knife that we were all waiting for. Let's move on to the next card. Is that okay?
Yeah,
let's do it.
All right. So here we have a level 0 version of Higher Education. It is a 0-cost asset with a will and intellect icon on it. Talents: while you have 5 or more cards in your hand, Higher Education gains Free trigger, spend a resource, you get +1 willpower for this skill test. Free trigger, spend a resource, you get +1 intellect for this skill test. And that effect is very similar to the original version, which is the permanent that came out in Dunwich, which had the same effect, except spending one resource gave you +2 to the chosen skill.
Which turns out that was pretty relevant in why that card was good.
Yeah,
permanent.
That was extremely important. It was permanent, and it got tabooed to have +5 experience. So comparing a level 0 card to like probably what they consider like a level 8 card.
I am kind of expecting to see that in the next taboo list, this might be cranked up to like tabooed +10 experience or something. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, we have to briefly take a moment to stand another very educated gentleman standing in front of a chalkboard with math on it, just like Arcane Enlightenment. So good for this guy. That's probably not a real bird. I think that's a stuffed bird.
No, come on, that's a cameo from the Farseek crow. Are you kidding me?
Maybe.
That crow's name is Farseek, and this is his cameo.
It could also be the crow that's on the Survivor card, the raven. You know, birds are good at finding clues in this game, apparently.
And doing math.
Or reducing only by 1. It's one of the other things, you know.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Clues are very spooky.
Like, as a card, I think that this card is, like, pretty fair. It's, like, costing 0 is a huge boon for this. And there's a couple other cards, they kind of reprinted a cycle of these, like Streetwise and everything. The red one is, we talked about last week, and it's not great. It costs, like, 2 or 3 to get out, and then you can start benefiting from it, and it's basically just, like, hard knocks. This is, like... This is solid because it's doing what you need it to do. Getting will is great. That's like a very, very relevant stat that's going to be relevant on pretty much anybody because of treacheries. Getting intellect is great because you're a seeker and that's what you do. So like, pretty fine.
Costing 0 is really good compared to the original talents from the core set. Like, what was the seeker one? Something. I forget what it's called. It was knowing stuff or something. But no, I mean costing 0 is really good. I could see playing this in like Finn or something if you really wanted to spend one of his 5 off-class cards on it. Like anybody that has money and needs to boost their intellect, this is a reasonable way to do it. As long as you're pretty sure you can have 5 cards in hand. Having 5 or more cards in hand is just a pretty gentle restriction that doesn't seem that bad. The big hand stuff that requires you to have like 8 or 10, I think is a harder sell, but 5 is pretty reasonable. Yeah, hyper awareness, that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, you just need to have a decent enough money engine. Like part of the reason super higher education was tabooed is because of Milan existing and being able to give you like 3 money every turn just by investigating.
And also it was just so efficient. 1 resource for +2, which is much better than any of the other money to boost your skills cards.
Yeah, Kraken and Smoke Bomb in the chat. Thank you very much. Hyper Awareness is the card. Costs 2, and it gives you boosts in intellect and agility. So agility is relevant because it might be able to like help you escape things quicker, and this doesn't really give you any defense in terms of like dealing with enemies. But if you're Daisy, you might be playing spells. If you're Norman, you might be playing spells. There are definitely uses for will.
Like everyone needs willpower at some point because of treachery cards. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to when they finally print level 5 knowing stuff. I think that's the card that the Seeker community has been waiting for a long time. But yeah, so that's higher education. Any more to say about higher education, or should we move on even higher to the next education? All right, let's do that.
Let's do it.
So our next card is we have a reprint of Laboratory Assistant, boring, and then we have Library Docent. So this is
we're not going to talk about Library Assistant at all.
It's a reprint. We haven't really been talking much about this.
Moving on.
Whatever.
You guys insisted on talking about Live and Learn last time against my wishes, but this time I'm in control. Ha ha ha. Library Docent is a 1-cost level 1 asset. It has an intellect icon and an agility icon. It is ally and Miskatonic. And it says, reaction. After Library Docent enters play, return a tome asset you control to its owner's hand. Play a different tome asset, by title, from your hand, reducing its cost by 2. It has 1 health and 2 sanity, and it takes up the ally slot. And the art is several very nice people carrying books.
I don't think students. Docents even.
They're holding books, so they're probably cultists, Stain.
I mean, to be fair, Well,
nice.
Now that I look at it, the lady in front is carrying a book, but the guy behind her just has a bag that looks like it might contain books, and then the person behind him looks like he's holding maybe a brochure. Ben, how do we feel about brochures? Are brochures as scary as books?
They're less scary.
I mean,
unless it's a person approaching you on the street to give you a brochure, that's pretty scary.
I mean, I've never heard of like an eldritch brochure that contains forbidden knowledge from beyond time and space, but there's still time for that to be a plot element in one of the upcoming campaigns.
So this is like really reasonable sell for like an ally, right? Like if you're doing weird tome stuff with things like there's a card that we're going to talk about later that will like shift a lot of these Miskatonic allies in viability and in interest for sure. But I think that like one cost for this is like the important part, I think, because you're getting what is essentially like something that's similar to this, I guess, would be Art Student, where you just play or you get a clue. Obviously, getting a clue is way better than just playing a tome. But for a 1 health 2 sanity body, that could help you like recharge your Encyclopedia or the next 2 cards that we're talking about. It could be like kind of a cool combo sort of thing, especially with like things like I'm Calling You Favors. You can get multiple uses out of it. But
yeah. I mean, the point of this card is let you recur your other tomes, right?
Yeah. So or play tomes that are locked in your hand because you've got both your hands.
It's just really a shame that it specifically restricts you from like bouncing a tome and playing that same tome. You have to play a different one. That cuts down on the power of it quite a bit.
Yeah. I'm imagining like if they ever did an upgraded version, that would probably be one of the restrictions they took.
I think I think the thing that people are really going to maybe want to do with this is what was the thing in Netrunner, like something plus scavenge? Like you could like put something into play for free and then scavenge it so it stayed out forever. Or you could do that with like
like test run.
Yeah,
stuff.
like test run scavenge, like stuff like that. Or there's plenty of ways to do that in Magic, where you like you flash something in with like flash, and then you like bounce it so that it stays on the field. You can do that kind of thing with this with sleight of hand if you're playing people that can play sleight of hand, so people want to do combos with that. I think if you're building a deck around like using tomes that have limited uses like secrets and you want to refill them, then this is an important component of that. I think in like just a general purpose good secret deck, it's kind of hard for this to compete with like Mr. Rook and Milan and Abigail, but I mean I think you could make a pretty fun deck out of this.
Yeah, I think so too. Very fairly costed. I think that's like the saving grace of this, because it's like if this were like 2 or 3, I would not consider playing it. Because this is 1. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's like minimal risk to it's kind of like aware of the fact that you're going to be playing like 3 or 4 cost book like next.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Alrighty. Next card.
No, I tuned out because I started talking about Netrunner.
Well, now tune back in. Time to tune back in, Ben.
All right, what are we doing? Is Dane reading this card?
He should be.
Hold on, it's not. There we go. Next card is Miskatonic Archaeology Funding. Remember we were talking about a card to have Miskatonic things happening? This is it. Level 4 asset. It's permanent. It's a grant. Limit 1 per deck. You have 2 additional ally slots, which can only be used to hold Miskatonic assets. Forced, when you take damage or horror, no more than 1 of that damage or horror can be assigned to a Miskatonic asset. So this is like charisma for a very specific type of education, right?
I really want to know if the reason behind this is like they figured that Harvey needed charisma to play all of these kind of like librarian type cards, but they didn't. They thought it would be boring to like literally reprint charisma in his deck, or notice there's no neutral cards in any of these decks. Like they didn't want to print a neutral card, so they gave us basically like a seeker specific alternate charisma maybe.
That's kind of what it feels like. The forced impact is very weird and also ridiculous rules wise. I think
we're going to have to talk about that when we talk about Harvey, because I think that is an attempt to prevent you from preventing his Achilles heel of a weakness from murdering him. So
there's discussion amongst the rules nerds on whether you can, if this means you can only put 1 damage or horror total on any Miskatonic asset, or if it means you can
like per
just put 1 per.
My vote would be 1 total, but I'm not a rules expert.
Yeah, the the rules nerds on the Rules Discord.
They're being rules nerds.
Someone put together a spreadsheet, Wern, of like all the various questions we have on all these cards.
Rules nerds, go outside, go for a walk, ride a bicycle. But also, I respect you, and I would like to know the answer to this question.
This is like, I mean, compare this to Charisma. Charisma gives you like 1 additional ally, which is amazing. This gives you 2 additional ally slots. On top of that, you can get 2 Charismas for 10 experience. Also, that's like, you can have so many allies right now. Are you kidding me?
Also, most of the good Seeker allies, except Mr. Rook or Miskatonic, like Milan is, Abigail I think is, Dr. William Henry Mallison is.
Yeah. Anybody you'd be considering for the Harvey Walters shenanigans, big hand stuff, like lab assistant, art students, all the expendable ones, you name it. They're all Miskatonic.
Yeah, it's basically like, rather than get Charisma in a Seeker deck, you could probably, if you're pretty sure you're going to get 2 Charismas, which is a big if, you should probably get this instead. But maybe you don't need it, so I don't know. Also, I like the art. I would really like a playmat of this cool art of people hanging out at a spooky dig site, digging up a glowing coffin that's probably going to kill everybody. Please, please make me a playmat of this card.
It's a really interesting, like, certainly build around me. You have a lot of allies if you're thinking about taking this card, right? Like, you've got all of those expendable allies that are really cheap to play, give you, like, mild bonuses and boons, and then you'll just, like, profit from having this for experience. It really just changes the course of your deck.
It takes away, because of that condition, it takes away the value of some of these, like, more disposable allies and making them harder to dispose of.
That's the thing.
Which is a lot of the benefits of these guys is like, oh, you play them, they do something, and then they're there to soak for you. Now you can't soak for you as well.
That's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
Someone brought in chat that grant funding doesn't involve immediately sacrificing your grad students at the first sign of trouble.
I mean, if you've ever watched.
That sounds wrong.
If you've ever watched a movie about like a expedition into some kind of scary place, then I think you would know that actually this is exactly how archaeology works. But,
yeah.
I don't know. Let's move on to the next card.
All right. I mean, most of the cards in this deck have been pretty lukewarm so far, so let's look at this one. It's called the Necronomicon. The Petrus de Dacia translation. I'm sure I said that loud and correctly.
Good job, Ben.
Not too bad. I think you did.
I must have said it wrong.
And welcome to the chat.
No Cthulhu's popped out, so it is a level 5 asset, cost 3, has 5 intellect icons on it. Seems like a lot. All right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Count them.
Item in a tome. Uses 6 secrets, limit 1 per deck. Free trigger, spend 1 secret, you get +2 skill value for this skill test. Free trigger, spend 2 secrets, draw 2 cards. Free trigger, spend 3 secrets, discover 1 clue at any location. Free trigger, spend 4 secrets, deal 3 damage to an enemy engaged with you. It takes up a hand slot. Those all seem like very good effects.
This is it. I'm surprised this isn't unique, but I guess it's limit 1 per deck. So.
It's limit 1 per deck, but it means someone else could have a copy.
Yeah, that's kind of weird, I think.
This is really hard to evaluate. I know that for solo, in like sort of solo mini decks, people are ridiculously excited about this because
this is really dumb.
I think because it's so flexible, like the 3 secret thing, discover 1 clue to a location in solo basically usually means clear off a location of clues. The spend 4 secrets thing basically means like kill an enemy, which you don't have a lot of ways to do in Seeker, so that's very powerful. It's just so flexible, and then obviously you can try to get more secrets on it. You can sleight of hand. You can bounce it with that ally we just talked about and then play it again. Yep. So you can do some pretty bonkers
You don't
stuff.
even exhaust it is the thing. Like you can just do all these in 1 turn and then just pull it back.
It also works with Knowledge is Power and Abigail, right?
Oh yeah.
Does it work with Knowledge is Power? Isn't that just actions, or does it work on free triggers?
That's a good question.
It's actions and free triggers, I think, as long as it's an asset. And like, I mean, the big thing here is Abigail like just makes this absolutely absurd, and then you can just like bounce it back with the library docent, and then play it again later. Sleight of handing isn't even a thing that I considered, and like maybe you take sleight of hand in Mandy because you can do exactly that. You can just sleight of hand this out, dump get 2 secrets or get 3 cards.
you could play this, dump this out, pump your skills, draw 6 cards, to lose.
I mean, the draw 6 cards thing is interesting, because most of the other things, like boosting your skill value, you have other ways to do that. Discover a clue at any location, you have the pendant that can do that. You have other ways to do that. Deal 3 damage to an enemy engaged with you. In a group, you don't really need that. Maybe in solo you do. But the draw, like if you can sleight of hand this out, immediately draw 6 cards, and then just bounce it back at the end of the turn. I mean, okay, now you have my attention a little bit, right? Like that's pretty solid. I mean, you have other ways to draw cards too, but
I feel like this card, like in a vacuum by itself, is like good and fine, but because there's ways to bounce it and recur it, that makes it extremely strong.
Yeah, and it also, like, it has 5 icons on it, so like if you're playing it in the incredibly good secret decks in multiplayer where you're trying to use archaic glyphs, guiding stones, like maybe some cycles through your deck you actually play it, maybe sometimes you like sleight of hand, use it up, and then commit it to a test where you're trying to succeed by 12. I don't know. The thing is, like, no one ability on this on its own for the amount of secrets it costs is like, holy crap, that's incredible. It's just the flexibility that you have, I think, makes this really, really good in like solo or duo. And yeah. I think it's more like fair / like good but not incredible in like higher player counts, but it's still, there's a lot of ways to do incredible things with it.
Yeah, I think that, so last episode we were talking about like old keyring and like scavenging, making scavenging a thing. I think in Min, level 2 scavenging is pretty funny with this Necronomicon, because you can, if you can get rid of it, you can like keep playing it from your bin and just keep using the secrets, even if it's Act of Desperation, which is kind of hilarious.
Also, if you're playing this in Min, I think you could actually get rid of King in Yellow by... It would definitely make it easy to get rid of King in Yellow, right? Because you have so many icons. And with Min, you can play Act of Desperation, and after you're done using up the secrets, you can hit someone with it.
You could show the book at him. That's great.
This book is empty. I need a new one.
Exactly. Yeah, I've ripped out all the pages of this book. Time to bounce it back to my hand and replay it. You know,
it's so cool.
Just like my
Kraken
books.
gives a good point in chat. You can definitely use this with Well Prepared and Joe, and you get five intellect icons on one thing.
That is true.
All right. Yeah, that could be a fun. I mean,
wait, isn't Well Prepared like level 3 or something?
Do.
Oh, really?
So. Yeah, so I think Joe may be the only one can do that combo, but yeah, Joe could become an investigation machine just by playing this and not recycling it, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like this is one we're going to have to come back to, and it interacts with so many cards, and there's so many different ways to use it. I think we have a lot of stuff to figure out about how to use this effectively, but it's a very powerful card.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next card, which is Whitton Greene, and we have 2 versions of Whitton Greene. So this is a unique card. So the level 0 version is a level 0 asset, cost 4, 1 intellect icon, ally, Miskatonic. So it works with that new permanent we just talked about. While you control a tome or relic asset, you get +1 intellect. Reaction after you reveal a location or put a new location into play, exhaust Whitton Greene, search the top 6 cards of your deck for a tome or relic asset and draw it, shuffle your deck. Has 2 health and sanity, takes up the ally slot. The level 2 version is the same, except that it adds a willpower icon. While you control a tome or relic asset, you get both the original +1 intellect and +1 will. When you reveal a location or put a location into play and you exhaust Whitton Greene, instead of searching the top 6, you search the top 9, and it has 3 sanity instead of 2. So it just kind of increases everything about it a little bit.
Which is always great.
This is similar to like Granny Orn or Peter Sylvester or Lola Santiago, where it's like a level 2 or 3-ish, 4-ish cost ally that like gives you 2 stats and has some kind of relevant ability on it. So that's pretty cool. That does a lot of the stuff that you want it to do.
Yeah. You need to be someone that's playing tomes, which there's a lot of tomes now, so there's a good chance there's one that you want to play. Or relics. There's not as many relics, but either way. And definitely in this deck, we've seen a lot of tomes and relics, so like there's just the cards in the Harvey deck here. You can probably trigger it pretty well.
Honestly, Pen of the Queen, the little fragments of Pen of the Queen, you have one of those down, Whitton's turned on. So second, if you just get one experience or one resource, play it fast. Now Whitton's turning on all the good stuff for you.
There's also like if you're trying to pass will tests, you could play Tooth of Esley and this, and Tooth of Esley is a relic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only hesitation about this being great is, as we've said before, there are a lot of other good allies competing with it. So, like, Daisy's like the one seeker that you know is always definitely going to have tomes, but Daisy would definitely rather have Abigail Foreman, right? So it's sort of like, well, would you play both? And the answer is maybe, especially if you had that new grant funding permanent.
Yeah.
So, I don't think this comes in ahead of like Mr. Rook or Abigail, but definitely a good card, and probably you can fit it into a lot of decks.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're not even considering the fact that it searches your deck multiple times. I think when Mr. Rook inevitably gets eroded to 2 or 3 experience per, you might play this in Mandy to find to constantly search through your deck and things.
I was trying to think it would be good in like Luke. Who would like using Gortez statues or something, or maybe other secret tomes, or maybe who else maybe Marie? Can Marie get level 2?
They have Scroll of Prophecies.
Remember Scroll of Prophecies is a tome too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
one last thing to talk about. So when you reveal a location or put a new location into play, I mean, that's really like in solo you're going to do that a lot probably, right? Or at least relatively often.
Yeah.
In group play, you might not do that very much. Like, on average, you might do it... I mean, if you have Pathfinder and stuff out, maybe you are doing a lot of the exploring and revealing. But, I mean, I think this is pretty strong anyway, just because of the stat boost that it gives you. So, even if that only triggers, like, once per scenario, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, it's just you don't get the stat boost until you get the Tome of Relic down, so you have to keep that in mind. Like by herself, she doesn't give you anything.
You would want to count up how many tomes and relics you have in your deck before you decide to play this.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, the one thing too, she is not susceptible, similar to Mr. Rook, to those Centuries of Secrets type things where it's like deal 1 damage to all allies you control or something like that. She's not susceptible to that, and that's like the Mr. Rook killer. That's the Peter killer. That's like the Granny Warren killer. Like,
Mr. Rook is 2 and 2, so Mr. Rook is also kind of safe from those.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the another dimension in
Dr.
which
Milan
he's, like,
and
really dumb.
Some of the other allies. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. No, I think she's great.
Let's move on. Oh, sorry, you had something to say?
Harris mentioned in chat, the gate box is you pretty good new location to play every time you use gate box.
Oh, that is true.
You'll
get that.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
I'm very interested now in trying to find some type of Luke nonsense to use her.
There's also there's definitely certain scenarios like Lost in Time and Space, or maybe like Pallid Mask, where this is going to happen more often than others. So could be cool.
All of Forgotten Age.
Yeah, there you go. Let's move on and talk about the events in the deck.
Hooray! So events, we've got one of our favorites, one of the MUR sponsors. Favorite events of all time. I've got a plan. So I've got a plan. We've got a new level 2 version here. It costs 2 resources to play. Has an additional intellect icon on it. And still an insight tactic fight. This attack uses intellect instead of combat. You get +2 intellect for this test, and then you deal +1 damage for this attack. Maximum of 3 for each clue you have. So buffed, pretty solid.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward upgrade. Costs a little bit less, gives you a stat boost to make it easier to hit.
The intellect instead of combat thing is just a clarification. It's not actually any change in how the card works, right?
Right. Yeah.
Actually, I guess it is, because if for some reason you had to fight with like willpower or something, you wouldn't be able to use this.
Do you think that was intentional, or did they just write it differently this time? And that's an unintended consequence.
I feel like they've been doing that a lot more recently on cards to say like instead of something. So I don't know if that's intended or not, or to be clarification, or just be clarification.
Clarificatified.
But no, yeah, because it says instead of, it has to actually replace that in order to be able to use it.
So you can't use it in whatever. Well, I mean,
I don't know if there's that many.
But the thing is, it's a fight action. It's not like you can play this as part of doing some fight action defined by another card.
I mean, there might be an enemy that's like, oh, fight this enemy using willpower. In that case, you would to use this. I think that's a very limited. I don't think that has come up. I can't think of anything on the top of my head when that is relevant though.
Well, the important thing is that we clarified it. So good for us.
We did.
My read on this is it's kind of a low priority upgrade because I mean it is good. It's just it's hard to see, but it decreases the cost by 2 or by 1 is probably my favorite part about it. The +2 bonus is also nice. So it's pretty cool. If you have the original Doorknob in your deck and you have a ton of XP, eventually you would probably upgrade it. Yeah,
I'm trying to think of times where I would upgrade my like combat capabilities versus my like seeking, getting more cards, all those capabilities. And I think that this kind of just falls short of that because I'd way rather get my Whitton Greene to level 2 or 3 or whatever level the other one's at, or like getting more ways to draw cards, things like that. Pathfinders, way higher priority. If this gave like 3 intellect or like remove the cap on damage and put it up to like 5 or something like that, then that's like that's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, it's already a cap of 4 because it's 1 plus up to 3. Which is already really good.
That's the thing. Like the original Doorknob was already such a powerful card in the situation that it's used, which is like save it as like a break in case of glass emergency, and then you either get an enemy that's on you or you like save it for the boss and like help kill an annoying boss at the end. It already works great for that. Really, the only thing that's wrong with it is that it costs a lot, and this only reduces the cost by 1. So it's cool. It's just like, you're probably going to upgrade most of your other cards first.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason this was added here is because they didn't. There's another event we'll talk about that's also similar to this, where you use intellect to deal damage, but they didn't reprint I Got a Plan, and maybe they didn't want to upgrade the other card, the middle ground is like, all right, here's an upgraded I've Got a Plan.
I think we saw this in like Nathaniel's deck too. These new decks, because they have to be self-sufficient for possible solo play, they have to include cards like this. Like the Nathaniel deck had to have a bunch of cards that got clues somehow with like fighting,
right.
And this Harvey deck has to include a bunch of cards that deal with enemies somehow. So I think this is one of those.
Yeah, and because we're in the event section, I'm going to talk about Crystallize. Great things for Crystallize Your Dreams. Very happy.
Crystallize.
Very, very exciting.
There are 2 symbols on it, and I guess Ursula could play it. But
on to the next card.
So the next card is Burning the Midnight Oil. It is a 0-cost event with intellect and an agility icon on it. It is an insight. Bold Investigate. When this action begins, gain 2 resources. And it is another art that features an old man, probably Harvey, reading a book with some tentacle shadows. It's probably fine.
You'll sleep when you're dead, old man.
Reading by candlelight. I feel like by the 20s, people had like gas lamps at the very least.
Isn't that what the midnight oil is?
Exactly. Well, I think so, right? Well, no, that would be like, that would be like oil lamps, right? I don't know. Yeah. Someone who understands light technology from 100 years ago, please call into our podcast somehow and educate us, because we badly need it. And we already saw a blue version of this that was the same thing, but it was like a fight instead of an investigate, and it had different symbols.
Yeah, like this is a similar card to that. I forgot the name of it already, but
same.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like it does what you want to do normally as a seeker, which is investigate, and it gives you 2 money on top of it. So you're like, if you compare it against like emergency cash, it's like instead you get 1 less money, but this time you get a clue instead. Which is not bad.
And you get the money regardless of whether or not you succeed, regardless of whether there's clues on your location, etc., etc.
Right.
Maybe you draw a bad token and fail or trigger a haunted or something, but it seems like generally better than cash most of the time. I think it's better than the blue version of the card, because that one, it's like, how often do you want to do a fight action off a card that isn't triggering a weapon to do extra damage, unless you're Nathaniel. But this one, like any seeker, is going to just do like straight up investigating fairly often. So
yeah. And it triggers off of anything that gives you like an extra investigate action, like Ursula.
Exactly.
You can use it for that stuff too. So seems fine. Seems solid.
Seems cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is like one of the most lukewarm Farseek options, right? Like when you have Farseek and you're like, well, I want to do my job as a seeker. This is actually one of the few cards that will allow you to do your job in like kind of a lukewarm way. When you put Farseek out and you're like, oh great, I can take fast investigate and gain 2 resources. There's a little bit of value there. But I think that just Smoke Bomb in chat linked to one of his decks that he's using Farseek in, which is using like really big things like Deciphered Reality to like get the most value out of it. You make that fast, and that's like a huge investigate for your team. But like this is like a very tiny, like pretty solid include. I feel like we should make like a slide of like all of the tiny different ways that seekers can gain money, because they've got so many now. They've got like Crack the Case, they've got the research one. There's one that's coming up that we're going to be talking about. This one.
I mean, let's just segue right into the next card, which I'm kind of excited about. This, I think, is a more interesting, cooler card. So we have Cryptic Writings. So there's a level 0 and a level 2 version. The level 0 version is a 0-cost event, has 2 int symbols on it. It is an insight, and it says, gain 2 resources. Reaction, after you draw Cryptic Writings during your turn, play it. The level 2 version is the same, except it has an addition. It has one of the intellect icons becomes a wild icon, so it has 1 int, 1 wild, and the text is gain 3 resources, 4 resources instead if you have 10 or more cards in hand. 10 or more other cards in hand. I think clarifying that you need to have like 10 cards plus this before you play it. And then it has the same after you draw it during your turn. Reaction, play it. So this is pretty cool. It's almost kind of like a research card. It's sort of like an alternate version of the money part of Astounding Revelation.
It's a reverse Astounding Revelation, which is why it's bad, because you'll never ever actually draw on your turn. You'll only ever draw this during upkeep.
That of course is true. That obviously is
not the 2 scenarios I have done with the Harvey deck so far. Forgotten Age. I drew this 4 times during upkeep, and that's really bad.
But the thing is, here's why I like this a lot, though. This still has upside. Like, look at the level 2 version, okay? So the worst case scenario for this card is it is literally an emergency cache, except it has icons on it, right? But it has 2 different ways you can get upside. If you have a ton of cards in hand, then it gives you 1 extra resource, which is nice. And if you draw it during your turn, which, despite how it will feel sometimes, is probably going to happen like half the time or more in a Harvey deck and in a lot of other Seeker decks, then you get to play it without spending an action. So, I mean, it has like 2 different separate dimensions where it can become a lot better than the baseline card, which is already pretty playable.
Yeah, no, it is actually pretty solid. I just had the Take Heart experience.
And
Take Heart.
And anything with 2 intellect icons is pretty solid for Guiding Stones. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it is good for Guiding Stones and nothing else. All right, well, yeah, seems good. Moving on.
So, there are some like unspoken rules that we're talking about in the chat right now. Kevin cracking on us. The first rule of Arkham that's unspoken is that whenever you commit Take Heart to a skill test, you will always draw the +1 or Elder Sign.
Correct, Dane. The first rule of Arkham is always burn it.
The third rule then is whenever you put research cards in your deck, you'll always draw them in your opening hand, or you'll never find them and draw them naturally. We're going to see if this is the 4th unspoken rule, where you will always draw this, as we were saying, during upkeep or any time that you would draw a card like from Guts or something like that, when you don't want to be drawing it. Even still, though, this card does commit for 2 intellect, which is like still great.
That's the thing. In the really, really good Seeker decks that are just cycling their deck every like 2.5 turns, it doesn't even matter if you draw your Astounding Revelations, because you're gonna draw them or find them again in like 2 turns. And so it doesn't even matter if you draw this. If you like, I think in the really good decks you'll like, oh, I drew this during upkeep. Okay, I'm just not gonna play it. I'm gonna discard it, and then next time through my deck maybe I'll draw it during my turn, and that's fine.
Yeah, or like even with that super good Mandy deck, like if you're getting 2 targets off of Mr. Rook, right? Fast action. Draw 2 cards essentially. If one of them is this, you get the other one, the get 2 cards when you're looking at a thing. You get 4 money, and then you get another card in addition to that, and maybe draw.
Well, and you can do like, you can start with 8 cards in hand, because this is like off of upkeep, and you can say, all right, I'm using Mr. Rook. For my first card, I pick something that I already have a copy of in hand. Exhaust Dream Enhancing Serum, draw another card, then pick this. Actually, I'm not sure if the timing would work out that way, but you get the idea. Like having, I mean, again, I don't mind cards that are like, if you have 10 cards in hand, you get like some kind of nice upside, but it's still a good card without it. Like, yeah, that's fine, you know?
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, my closing remark regarding it on Crystallizer, when you draw this during your hand, you immediately play it and then stick it. You don't even need an action to do it. It's great. I'm very excited about this card.
Yeah, pick it and stick it. That's the crystallizer workflow. No, but I think I'm excited to try this. I think it kind of competes with Crack the Case and with Astounding Revelation, both of which are also really good. So you kind of have to like have a hard decision about exactly how to get your money in one of these ridiculously good secret decks. But this seems really fun, and I'm excited to try it.
Grade A.
Yep, definitely.
Hooray.
Moving on to our next card. This is another one where it's like, oh, there was already a version of this? I thought this was completely new. But no, there already was one.
It's true. It's extensive research.
It's extensive.
It's very extensive. Even more extensive. Extensiver.
It should be called expensive research.
Hey. So this is a 12 cost event. This is like the highest cost event in the game. If you're in school right now or you're still paying off your loans, you actually can't play. It has 2 intellect icons on it, and it's an insight. Reduce the cost to play extensive research by 1 for each other card in your hand. Discover 2 clues at your location. So same exact thing. The only difference is that since it's level 0, it costs 2 more to play, which is a ton more. Yep. It's so much more. Like, we were talking about extensive research level 1 being like, well, this is kind of tough if you're like kind of a tough sell on a big hand deck anyway. But if you're playing it in Joe and you're also doing big hand stuff, you get that -2, right? So maybe that can like kind of get you in on some things that other investigators can't. This completely negates that. This is like, remember when you were thinking about putting it a Joe deck? Well, you can't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, much like a lot of the cards in this deck, this is a big hand only card.
And even then, just the upside to this is like the very best possible case scenario for this is 0 cost event, 1 action, get 2 clues. Compare that to like a deduction or something, right? You have to pass the test. That's like the only thing that makes deduction worse. Right. And deduction works even if you're broke. And have no cards in hand, Yeah,
maybe in solo, if you're trying to do big hand in solo, or not solo, on like a harder difficulty, like hard or expert, where you don't want to do tests. Like, testless clues are good. It's just if you don't have the big hand running, you can't play this card because it costs too much.
I think if at some point you're playing, if they make an investigator that can play like every permanent, and you're playing like on your own, and if you're playing like a deck that somehow can play on your own, and what's the new bird card that we just talked about like 10 minutes ago? Farsight. Then it's like, okay, you could do some fun stuff. But except for that, this just seems too expensive and too weird.
Well, on your own is only survivor cards.
Well, right, but like if there's some dual class, somebody that can kind of like Mecha Lola or something, like Robot Lola that can play all cards. I don't know.
You can do Min, or maybe there'll be a future like Survivor, Subclass Seeker, or Survivor with like take 5 of this and this class and this class.
I'm trying to be polite. Don't play this card.
All right. Next card.
Yeah.
All right. Next card is Glimpse the Unthinkable. This is a downgrade of the level 5 version. This is a level 1, cost 0 event with 2 intellect icons. Insight, draw 1 card, shuffle any number of non-weakness cards from your hand into your deck, then draw that many cards. Compared to the original level 5, original level 5 costs 1, has 3 intellect icons on it, and the ability is shuffle any number of your non-weakness cards from your hand to your deck, and then draw cards until you reach your maximum hand size, and then remove from game. This is like a way more reasonable version of the upgrade. Like a lot more reasonable.
Is this like better than it looks at first? I think
it is. I think so. We were just talking about cards like Cryptic Writing and the research one that I can never think. This is exactly what we wanted, to shuffle them back in. If you draw them on times that you don't want to have drawn them, you play Glimpse the Unthinkable, you draw a card, 2 for Harvey, shuffle all of those cards, the research cards, whatever else you don't want in your hand at that moment, back into your deck, and then you draw some more cards. So it's like,
imagine having like 1 card left in your deck and shuffling back in like 2 Cryptic Writings and like some other nonsense or whatever, and it's like, I'm just gonna literally draw them and then immediately blast them for no actions. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah. No, great.
I think this is pretty solid. Even outside of big hand decks, you can make good use of this.
Free is really good. Being able to like trade in, I mean, less than in other games because they don't have like skill icons, but still being able to like trade in cards that you don't need for like potentially better cards is cool. But I like that I like that you draw one card right at the beginning, because that one card, either you like it or you trade it in and you look at a different card. So it's kind of like no matter what, you're getting to look at a lot more cards that are in your deck. Right. So that's pretty cool. I think this is really solid.
Yeah, I mean, like even the most pocket case scenario where I love, and I know that if you're playing Practice Makes Perfect, you kind of want to get as much value out of your practice cards as you can. So things like Perception, Vicious Blow, if you're playing Joe, those kinds of things. Like if you wanted to take the gamble, like if you have a Practice Makes Perfect in your hand and you're like, I've only got like 6 cards left in my deck, so let me like take all of my practice cards, shuffle them back in, play my Practice Makes Perfect, then you get another chance at like duplicating the deduction or whatever, so to speak. You might just draw it again, but you know it'll help you like get maximum value even out of that such a scenario.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like that alone is not enough reason to play this, but like if you're already playing it, you should definitely try to shuffle back things that you could get with Practice Makes Perfect.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, we should mention if you're playing like a Mandy deck with Mr. Rook and this and Practice Makes Perfect, you are shuffling your deck so many times. Like I honestly, I've not tried to play that type of deck with paper cards yet because of pandemic and various other things, but holy crap, you would have to do so much shuffling to play a deck like that. I mean, I think that'd be fine. I don't mind shuffling cards, but it is worth considering.
That's very true. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Seems good.
This is upgraded Mind Over Matter? It is, yeah. So upgraded Mind Over Matter. Level 2. Still costs 1 to play. Has an additional wild icon in addition to the combat and the agility icons. But notably, Mind Over Matter. The over is capitalized here. That's a difference. Fast blank during your turn. Until the end of your turn, until the end of the round, add your intellect to your combat and agility and draw 1 card. Very big upgrade here, I think. Makes it very, very different.
I think upgrading I think capitalizing the word over in the title is a huge upgrade, and I'm really excited to see the ramifications of that for various types of Seeker decks. We're really going to have to play this one and see how it turns out.
I think the original print was probably a misprint because it should have been capitalized in the original, but it's a good fix there. This card, I'm less excited about this card because it means that you're no longer doing an intellect test with it, so you can't commit intellect icons directly.
Yeah.
You have to commit combat or agility icons.
Yeah, that's true.
To anyone
that's kind of a big test.
It's also just this is one of those cards kind of like Doorknob where it's like a hedge, like it's in your deck as like an emergency thing anyway. Like a lot of games you won't even play it. When you do play it, your intellect is probably high enough that just using your intellect is probably fine. Like you probably don't really need to add it to your probably crappy combat and agility. Because if your combat and agility were any good, you would be less likely to play this card. You just play like a courage or something.
Yeah.
So I don't really think that this is ever worth playing, honestly, except maybe in like a solo deck where you really need to.
Here are some things of a weird point. If the O's are differently capitalized, does that mean they have the same name or different names?
Ooh,
does capitalization matter?
That is a good point. This is the kind of thing that software engineers have to deal with every day. So believe me.
It's very relevant.
Yeah, if it's in Unicode, is that we'll have to figure it out.
I mean, it still helps. Like, I think the big thing here is that I've Got a Plan doesn't do is that it helps with treacheries, right? Like, if you're exploring in the Forgotten Age or something like that, and you need to add your book to your agility, then like that's a huge bonus.
So it helps with treacheries if you explore or play a delve on your turn. That's right. It, though.
Yeah, exactly. Has to be on your turn.
Not good enough.
Moving on.
Mind Over Matter. You're the weakest link. Bye. I think we messed up the rotation at some point. I'm just going to read this one because I think I probably skipped mine. So Occult Invocation is a 2-cost event, level 0. It has a combat icon and an intellect icon. It's a spell. As an additional cost to play Occult Invocation, discard up to 2 cards from your hand. Fight. This attack uses intellect instead of combat. You get +1 intellect and deal +1 damage for this attack for each card discarded as part of this card's cost. Interesting.
I was very sad because I played this card in kind of a cool Marie deck where I have like stones and winging it, and I was like, I really want to do cool things with like this and with the tome where you get the spell that does kind of a similar thing. But this actually doesn't do for Blood Rights. Blood Right actually lets you draw 2 cards and then you can discard cards.
Right.
I thought that this read exactly like that, so I was like, wow, this is great. But this is you only can discard cards from your hand to get the bonuses. So it's a little less versatile, but I think it's still kind of a cool card. If you have a lot of cards in hand.
I hadn't even thought of that. This really is just a worse Blood right? Because it costs 2 instead of 0. You don't get to draw 2, but you still have to discard 2 to do... I mean, you can do like 3 damage instead of 2, but you have to do a test.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing that makes it really good, I think, is like if in or something and you have like Moonstone, all that kind of benefits, then you kind of get the best value out of it there. But like otherwise, it's kind of tough to use in kind of a sustainable way.
I mean, if you're doing the giant hand deck, then you often have cards that you can afford to just discard.
See, this is
cycle the deck pretty quickly.
No, this is why the giant hand deck is sort of bad. Is like on the one hand you're saying, oh, it's fine because if you have cards you get all these great bonuses, but on the other hand you're saying, but then you can discard all of your junk cards. But then your whatever that book was, then your book of books isn't giving you as many bonuses now. Like,
but the big hand deck, you have like 15 cards in your hand at once, so when you discard something, it's fine because you're going to redraw it like in 2 turns anyway.
Well, sure, but I mean, like then you've turned off that stuff for those 2 turns. Like all I'm saying is like, it's still a cost to like give up cards, right? Like if you're holding cards in your hand that you never want to play and you're happy to just like hold there, why not? That just doesn't seem great. But
yeah, I mean, with this though, you can do 3 damage, which is
very important.
Pretty relevant.
I guess unlike Doorknob, you don't have to have clues. So some scenarios where you have to like instantly spend your clues as soon as you get them, like I've Got a Plan doesn't really work. This is maybe a little bit more flexible than.
It's also cheaper.
By 1. Yeah. I don't know. I think I like I've Got a Plan more in general, but this is especially like for a Seeker deck where it's like we were saying. It's why this and Mind Over Matter and Upgraded Doorknob were in here. They had to put in a few cards that would help Harvey somehow deal with enemies for solo play, right? So
exactly, yeah. I think that's kind of why this card exists.
I do like the art
deck and it's fun.
I do like the art with like spooky badass Harvey. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the art is definitely pretty cool.
I feel like the whole theme of the untranslated thing. It's like somebody told Harvey not to open this book, and then he was like, "Well, I'm going to open this book," and then this is him opening that book.
Sir, I am an old man, and I will do as I please. And what I please is to read this book.
It doesn't care. Just goes straight for it. Completely disregards all protocol.
Let's move on to the next card.
There's a reprint of Crossroad Sketches, which pretty good card.
Okay.
And the next new card is Seeking Answers.
Sinking.
It's a level 2 cost 1 event. It is an upgrade from a Dunwich card that was level 0. This version has intellect and 2 agility icons. The ability is Investigate. If you succeed, discover 2 total clues from among your location and connecting locations. The original version was instead of discovering a clue at your location, discover a clue at a connecting location. And that's extremely relevant because this card gives you 3 clues, while the original one got you 1.
Yep, and from your location. That's the big thing, right? Like this is absolutely ridiculous in the proper decks, I think.
Yeah,
and there are 2 investigators that I'm thinking of that can make very, very, very good use out of this card. One of them doesn't exist yet, but
this is the big like Leo squinting in Inception. Like, did they do this on purpose? Did they like? Are we sure? Is this going to get eroded? Should I sell stock in this card because it's about to become only 66% as good as it currently is? Like, I don't know. because it says like I feel like maybe they thought that discover 2 total clues. Oh no, I bumped my scroll wheel. I think maybe they thought that like the word total, like discover two total clues, meant somehow that like you did not get 3, but no, you definitely do.
Yeah, this card is like what?
I mean, it's still like it costs 1. I mean, yeah, I guess it's pretty cool, right? It's like because you can't have 4 copies of Deduction level 2 in your deck, right? So you might as well maybe have 2 copies of that.
Oh god, it's so good. Like, so we were talking about like Rite of Seeking, why that's so good in exactly 3-player play.
Right.
This card is, like shines in that scenario like hugely,
and it's
like
it's an insight, so it fits right in the hunch deck.
Oh my god, it's so good. Like for Ursula can fast action move, play this from her trigger, and get 3 clues. And also deduction to it, like,
So lets you like sneak under locked doors and stuff because you can.
Oh, that's right.
That is
just from your adjacent location.
So you could,
like
but even I mean, does locked door say you can't discover or can't investigate?
You can't investigate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but
and I think it also would get around that TCU card, not TCU, the Dream Eaters card that adds a doom when you investigation or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, it would sneak under that as well.
That's pretty good. And it works in the Farsight deck, you know, if you're trying to play a very event-heavy Seeker deck. So I think this is pretty...
She can just run to the next location, you know, if there's clues on the one she left, and grab them anyway. You know,
if there were any hypothetical investigator was rogue and could also play this, double with this is hilarious. Like, if there were a hypothetical rogue who could like dodge any enemies...
I'm really confused how everything has
it's ridiculous.
It's not a matter of like we're not allowed to. It's more a matter of just like there's so much stuff to already talk about, and we're going to be talking about Trish in a few weeks.
This card is very, very, very cool. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to see like a card that I would otherwise consider basically dead in my binder, and have it become like, wow, this is amazing. I'm very excited to play.
Yeah, it's always fun when that happens, and this is definitely a really surprisingly big increase in how good a card is from level 0 to level 2, so that's pretty exciting.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Let's move on to another card, and of course we have a reprint of level 0 deduction, no reprint of level 2 deduction, too bad, because that one is not in the core set, so boo, unfortunate. And then moving on, we have Perception. So we have it's level 2. It's a skill card. Now it's a Seeker card. Previously it was neutral. It has 3 intellect icons on it, and it says max 1 committed per skill test. If it says successful, draw 1 card. 2 cards instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. So the differences are it gets a 3rd icon, and you get a 2nd card if you succeed by 2. This might be the best card in this product.
That's a hot take, Dan. I feel like there's several cards we talked about that are definitely better.
This is a really good card.
I mean, it's definitely good. I mean, is it good? Like, I never play regular Perception. That's like the skill card I never use.
I played it in Practice Make Perfect all the time.
That's the thing, right? It's like this is like testless draw 4 cards, and also really helps with Guiding Stones. Like that's.
He's seen the light.
It's pretty bonkers. Like it was a thing where like playing Practice Makes Perfect with like deduction and level 0 deduction was already pretty good, but this is just like a huge shot on the arm for that deck already. You know.
It's just like playing Harvey and just like drawing 3 cards off of multi-perception.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. It's a lot of cards for 1 skill. Like this is like these are the greater skill cards, I think.
It's kind of dumb how good this is. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's other good cards we talked about too, but this is surprisingly good, is what I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
not more important than this. It does feature Ursula on it.
It does. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is that Ursula? Does she wear glasses? Because this lady has glasses, right?
No.
Really? I thought I could see like. Very thin framed glasses. Yeah, I guess not.
So, like, but the thing is that like so in an Ursula deck, generally speaking, I'm playing a lot of events. Like shortcuts and working on hunches, things that like you can just benefit off of the least amount of actions other than like your 3 core actions, which are usually going to just be investigate. This like 100% more cards. This is like you just commit this to a test, especially if you've got glyphs out like guiding stones. You draw 2 cards off of this, and this is amazing. It's for 2 experience, and you're at no, and it's like fantastic.
Yeah, because with guiding stones, you're absolutely succeeding by 2, except for tentacles, and you're drawing so many cards. It's stupid, and you practice makes perfect. You commit it once, then you have it in your hand, then you commit it again the next time. It's stupid how good it is. I think this is the best of the upgraded core set skill cards. I think they're all pretty decent, but I think this is definitely the best of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that like in terms of like how stats are generally, being proactive, getting clues, all that kind of stuff. I think that's, and then fighting combat is like probably the second best, and will, guts, things like that are great. So like, you're always going to find it. Like, as a seeker, will 100% play this every time you see it.
Well, I mean, if you're not playing Practice Makes Perfect, I would think hard about it. But if you are playing Practice Makes Perfect, which you very likely are, then yeah, you should absolutely play this.
I mean, like when you see this, when you come across this in your deck, you're like, oh, immediately.
Oh yeah.
I'm immediately playing this. So yeah.
Anything more to say about Perception Level 2 or?
Great cards.
That is so that's the last of the Seeker cards. So because we are only talking about 1 class worth of cards in this, even though we spent a ton of time talking about those cards. We were also going to briefly talk about the 5 new basic weaknesses that are in the 5 Investigator decks. So let's do that.
Yeah, so they're all kind of themed a little bit to go with the message they came with, but they're also...
Yeah. Ben, would you like to read this one?
No, it's actually Dane's turn.
Well, I mean, Dane looks like he's really busy. I think Ben should read this one.
Oh man, I'm very excited to read this card. This is my favorite one of the weaknesses in the new decks.
Yeah, Dane, I wouldn't want to steal the Dane excitement.
This is a Tichophobia, right?
Sure, I guess.
A Tichophobia is a madness revelation. You put it.
Yeah, that sounds right.
After you fail a skill test, take 1 horror, and then 2 actions to discard a Tichophobia. So I think this is Stella's, right? This comes in Stella's pack.
Yeah.
Yep. It's fail themes. Counters her.
Very, very just simple card, like kind of innocuous. Unless you're like playing somebody like Agnes who like to not take random horror, or like Mark, somebody has like a tiny sanity pool.
I mean, in Agnes it'd be kind of fine, right? Because sometimes you take horror because you fail tests.
I mean, you probably already have Peter and stuff in Agnes, right? Or you have other ways to heal horror.
That's very true.
So,
this seems like not that scary of a weakness unless you're already doing like a fail hard deck.
I think it's scary if you're like Stella, where you're going to fail at least once every single turn, and it's scary if you're like Roland or somebody and you have like exactly 5 sanity. Other than that, I think this is pretty gentle.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the reason why I was really excited on it, it's like somebody who's like very, very scared to not write Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like,
yeah.
I don't really understand.
It's really kind of creepy and scary.
I don't totally understand what's going on in the art, but I assume it's some kind of like a all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy kind of a thing. Like someone's going nuts.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the vibe I get from it.
Yeah.
They're worried about failing and getting something wrong, so they're freaking out as they write it down, and they keep worrying about making mistakes, which causes a cycle of making mistakes. It's an anxiety thing.
Interesting.
Prophecy.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Next one.
Yeah, next one's Nihilism. This one's in Jacqueline's pack. It is a treachery madness. Put Nihilism into play. As the revelation, forced after you reveal, cancel or ignore a auto fail, take 1 damage and 1 horror, 2 action, discard Nihilism. So it makes the auto fail scarier. It also.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, this seems pretty fine.
Yeah, like how many times do you draw the auto fail in a game?
I have a question. I have a rules question. What happens if somebody's playing Mateo and changes that does it actually change the fact that you revealed the tentacle to an elder sign?
I don't remember what Mateo's building. Mateo cancels that token. and then treats it as an Elder Sign. So,
but it would still take the damage in the horror though, because he's canceling the Elder.
Yeah. So like any type of for mystics in particular that do like a lot of token manipulation stuff. This is last year because you might be drawing more tokens, and therefore you get the autofill a little more often.
Yeah, for sure.
I think if you play a lot of bad bullshit cards like Dark Prophecy, then maybe you have to worry about this. If you play good cards, not a big deal.
Yeah, if you get this in like that Great Mandy deck or Mark, great. I'm very happy to see this.
Yep.
This is just going to stay there the whole game.
Especially like the fewer tests you're doing, the less you care. And the thing is, like, it's very possible that, if you have eventually, you might take a couple of hits, maybe you're down to like 3 health left, and then you're like, okay, I don't want to take the chances anymore. Then you get rid of it. And any weakness that you can click away for 2 actions is like not that bad. Like, it could be worse. So the worst case for this is you just spend 2 actions and get rid of it.
Yeah.
The implications of the card with the artwork and stuff is very dark. It's definitely a lady standing on a cliff, ready to jump. So yeah.
And what a beautiful cliff it is too. In the full moon, waves, looks great.
I mean, art definitely is good. It's just very fits in with that Imprimatur theme of.
Moving on to the next one is called Obsessive. This is the one that's in Harvey's deck, right? Because it's on account of it's an old man in the art. So Obsessive, it's a flaw. It says Revelation. Put Obsessive into play in your threat area. Forced when your turn begins. Discard 1 non-weakness card at random from your hand. Double click discard Obsessive. This one I feel like I'm going to want to get rid of very quickly when I get it.
100%. Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially
if you're playing a big hand deck and you have like 15 cards in your hand, then maybe you don't care if you just lose one of those.
Oh, but what if it turns off my book of books, or it turns off my Farsight? The thing is, the odds of losing the important card that you are holding on to is probably lower, but you still might lose a card that you really, so.
The random part is so huge.
Yeah. And it's annoying because if you draw it during upkeep, it will certainly trigger once, right?
Yep.
So, but
I mean, it's not as bad as like Amnesia, but
it's still bad though. It's like the time investment to this is kind of like it's just really rough. Like you probably gonna try to have your Guardian take care of this like the second you get it, just so you don't drop things that you need.
Yeah, it's not like Silver Twilight Acolyte where it can like lose you a turn. It's not like some that can just like kill you. It's not Amnesia that's just absolutely horrible. But like you're gonna want to get rid of it. Let's move on to the next one though.
Next one is Reckless. This is the one that comes in Winnie's pack. Basic weakness flaw. Commit only to a skill test you're performing of any type that has no other cards committed to it. Other cards cannot be committed to the skill test. If this test fails, return the skill test to your hand. If Reckless is in your hand at the end of your turn, reveal it and lose 2 resources. Dark Horse players, rejoice! Here is your way of getting rid of all of your money forever.
Oh boy.
Okay. I mean, is this the first basic weakness skill we've seen? We've seen weakness skills before, like in Silas, but
I think that's true.
Other than Winnie's, yeah, like Winnie's actual one.
Well, yeah, so that's not a basic weakness. So, yeah, I mean, this could be kind of bad because you need to be able to pass a test without committing stuff. So I guess you just need to find easy tests to play it on to get rid of it. But you definitely don't want to hold it in your hand unless you're maybe playing Dark Horse.
I mean, I think it's gonna be hard for like some decks like Stella where they're trying to like fail on purpose and then play Look What I Found is kind of like the type of thing that their deck wants to do, where they're not actually going to pass a lot of tests. But I feel like if you are playing any deck where one of your base skills is a 5 and like that's the skill that you're trying to use the most, you can probably just find a way to use this. Especially like if you're a seeker, you should pretty much always be able to just find a place to investigate and succeed without committing cards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it could be like if you're a deck that relies on money, you could get into a hole where like you have to lose 2 resources a turn, and then because you don't have resources, you can't succeed and get rid of this. Like certain decks, it could be really, really annoying, but
yeah,
I think a lot of times you'll just get rid of it quite easily.
Yeah, like Kraken saying, imagine this with King in Yellow. This would suck so bad. Or Preston, who has 1 in all of his stats, and like if you can only commit this to a test. He's got like ways out, but man, this is tough for some.
You can still spend your money to boost your stats.
That is true. That is true.
It's also, I mean, keep in mind that if you don't have to play cards that cost money, you could just hang on to this and not care. You know, like the worst that this can do is keep you broke so that you only have one resource a turn from upkeep.
Yeah, that's fair.
How does this work with Preston? Do you lose it off of his inheritance if you don't have money in your actual pool?
No.
Ooh. I mean,
think so.
That's interesting, right? Because like some Preston decks, you're not really trying to stack up money. You're just trying to, I don't know. I think a lot of times this is not going to be very bad.
Yeah.
Because inheritance doesn't count as being in your pool. It's just money you spend.
Last one.
Yeah. So the last one is self-destructive. This was in Nathaniel's deck. It is a treachery flaw. Revelation, put self-destruction in your play area. Forced, when you deal 1 or more damage to an enemy, take 1 damage. Double action to discard. If you're not a fighter, then this is a great weakness to get.
This is wonderful. This is the only way to make Mandy better was to print this weakness so that if she gets it, she's just like completely unbeatable.
It's also a great mark weakness, right? Because you can take a damage to draw a card. I don't know.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. Well, especially like because what you could do is like because I was thinking, you could like use Beat Cop on enemy phase, but then you're already drawing a card off of using the Beat Cop. You don't get another card off of taking. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like, if you are honestly, Mark is one of the worst Guardians to get this. Other Guardians usually, like, okay, they are going to fight sometimes, but they also have, like, 8 or 9 health, so they can take it for a couple turns if they need to. With Mark, it's like, okay, you're trying to carefully manage your health. You don't want to just take damage from this, probably, but even still, it's pretty easy to get rid of. You can always have somebody, the person that you just saved from a Byakuya, you can say, hey, can you please click away my self-destructive, you know?
Yeah.
No, this is great for, like, Tommy. Like, fill up my leather coat, please.
Oh, yeah.
Also, great for Calvin, right? It should say Spirit Flaw on it because it's like a great Calvin.
You can draw this when you versatile in the boxing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the art on this because it's like someone like punched a mirror, enough until it broke or whatever.
Perhaps with a boxing glove.
Perhaps.
Or not because there's like blood on the glass, so probably not. That was the problem. But yeah. Well, that's all the weaknesses.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing too terrible. So.
Yeah, they're pretty kind of baseline.
Yeah, so that's it. Everybody, how did you feel about Harvey's Investigator pack? And I think that Harvey's pack probably took the longest. Next week we'll be talking about Winnie's pack and Jacqueline's pack. And we're going to be doing that next Tuesday. That would be the 9th, I think, right?
Maybe.
No, the 8th. Next Tuesday, September 8th at 9:00 p.m. We'll be doing this again. We'll be checking out Jacqueline and Winnie's packs. Before we go, we just did want to take a second here to let you guys know that we do have a Patreon. If you guys want to lend a hand, help support the cast, consider donating to our Patreon. It'll help us keep making content. And so with all that being said, if you guys, if anybody had missed like the whole chat here, the whole hangout sesh, we're going to have this up on as podcast format as well as on YouTube for next week. So keep an eye out for that. Check us out on Facebook, Reddit, or wherever you guys catch our podcasts otherwise. Email us at comments@mur.fm. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. And stay safe, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
I'd like to thank my computer for not crashing this time. All it took was reinstalling everything.
Yay, Dan's computer!
Hooray.
Yeah.
We made it through. We'll catch you next week, guys, at Tuesday at 9:00.
Yep.
All right, I am stopping the stream now.